Hi everyone, this video is for my 6th grade science students as we look at cells for this unit. I'm going to begin by reading part of a book for you that goes over the importance of the different organelles in cells and the difference between plant and animal cells. Okay? Imagine that you are a witness in a police lineup, but you are required to do your identification through a microscope. Now imagine that the suspects are as follows: a porcupine, a potato plant, a squirrel, and an avocado. It's your job to pick out the plants from the animals. After learning about the differences between plants and animal cells, you will be able to identify them from their unique characteristics. All living things, whether they are plants or animals, are made up of cells. Cells are the smallest, most basic units of life. Cells are the building blocks that make up every inch of your entire body, and it takes many bricks to build a wall. It takes trillions of cells to make the tissues, muscles, skin, organs, and blood that is part of every living person. However, you can only see cells under a microscope. Some organisms have only one cell. For example, germs, also known as bacteria, are unicellular. In fact, single-celled organisms are all around us, but we can't see them with the naked eye. Although single-celled germs are likely on your body as we read, have no fear. As long as you wash your hands before eating, even if they don't look dirty, it is unlikely that the germs on them will enter your body. Large living things, such as humans, trees, are multicellular. Such multicellular organisms can be made up of millions, if not trillions, of cells. Cells come in all different shapes and sizes. They can be long and thin, small and round, and they even can be shaped like kites. The different shapes and sizes allow cells to perform their specialized functions. Your muscles are made of cells that help you move, and your blood is made of cells that carry oxygen around your body. Plants have cells that force water up their stems and others that protect the outside of the plant, just as your skin cells provide an outer coating for protection for your body. Despite the differences between cells that perform different functions, plant and animal cells have similar components. All cells, whether plant or animal, have structures that can be found inside every cell. These structures are even tinier than the microscopic cell itself. All eukaryotic cells have a nucleus, which is like the cell's command center. Eukaryotic cells, which are cells that contain a nucleus, also contain organelles, which are like little organs, surrounded by a cellular membrane. This membrane is like an outer skin that filters materials in and out of the organelles. The cells of protozoa, algae, fungi, plants, and animals are all eukaryotic, while prokaryotic cells, those cells without true nucleuses, such as bacteria, have no compartmentalized organelles. The nucleus. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. If a cell were an airplane, the nucleus would be the cockpit where the pilot sits. It is located in the center of the cell, and it stores genetic information known as deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. The nucleus is wrapped in a membrane with pores or holes which let the genetic information pass between it and the rest of the cell. It is the large structure in most cells, and it's often the part of the plant or animal cell that is most clearly visible when seen under a microscope. Inside the nucleus is a round body called the nucleolus. The nucleolus produces messengers, which are transported out of the nucleus to other parts of the cell. The ribosomes receive and synthesize the proteins according to the instructions sent by the nucleoli, which is the plural of nucleus. The ribosomes are tiny, round particles that often attach to long, stringy structures called the endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER. After the proteins are processed by the ER, they are then either used by the cell or exported through the outer plasma membrane. The other parts of the cells. Cells also have built-in security systems called the Golgi apparatus. The cell's Golgi apparatus is like a security system that patrols the cells. The Golgi apparatus wraps around substances and either stores them for later or forces them out. As part of the rejection process, and part of the Golgi apparatus has a substance wrapped in it that will break off. This sac is rejected inner substance, is then transported to the plasma membrane. Most of the cell is made up of cytoplasm. Organelles float freely in this jelly-like substance. The organelles each have their own specific role in keeping the cell alive. Some organelles make products for other cells to use, while others deal with waste. Each organelle is controlled by information generated from the nucleus. For example, the largest organelles that control respiration for the cell are called mitochondria. One of the proteins in the outer cell membrane have chosen the sugars, which is called glucose. They will let into the cell. Mitochondria helps process those sugars. During cellular respiration, glucose and oxygen react in the mitochondria to produce the energy needed for the cell to carry out its functions. In this way, the mitochondria is like the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria are usually found in abundance in the cell that use a lot of energy, like liver and muscle cells. Like the nucleus, the mitochondria have a double membrane. The outer membrane is smooth, but the inner membrane has lots of wrinkles and folds, which increases its surface area. It is on the inner membrane that the glucose reacts in oxygen to produce the primary energy for the cell. Lysosomes are round organelles in the cytoplasm that contain enzymes. Lysosomes combat harmful substances and help digest food. Lysosomes are common in animal cells, but rare in plant cells. Normally, the lysosomes do not release the enzymes out to the cell itself. However, if the cell becomes damaged, the skins of the lysosomes disappear. Enzymes are released into the entire cell, and the cell digests itself. This process of cell death is called necrosis. I'm going to continue to the section titled Plant Cells now. Plant cells are much easier to see under a microscope than animal cells for two reasons. The first reason is that plant cells are generally larger than animal cells. In addition, plant cells have a thick cell wall outside the plasma membrane, making them easy to identify. Animal cells only have a thin, flexible cell membrane. The plant's thick cell wall is made of a rigid substance called cellulose, which helps the plant cell membrane maintain its shape. Cellulose also protects the plant cell from mechanical damage. Cellulose is made up of linked glucose units, and it's the major raw material composed used to produce some manufactured fibers, such as rayon. Historically, paper was produced from the cellulose of the cell wall of cotton plants, which are 91% cellulose. Today, hardwoods and softwoods provide the major source of paper-making fibers, which are now made of only about 60% cellulose. Plant cells are primarily composed of a large central vacuole, which fills at least 90% of a mature plant cell. The vacuole is a large watery bag near the center that stores chemicals and functions as a lysosome. Vacuoles can also help protect plants against predators by storing compounds that are poisonous to animals. I'm going to continue to why plants are green. Unlike animal cells, plant cells and certain types of algae contain chloroplasts, which are organelles that contain a green pigment called chlorophyll. All green parts of the plant contain chloroplasts, including the stem, the leaves, and sometimes unripe fruit. The chloroplasts capture and trap light energy from the sun. This process is called photosynthesis. The chloroplast then stores this energy in a chemical form and, in turn, provides energy for all other living things in the form of glucose. I'm going to continue to Chapter 3, Animal Cells. Animal cells are harder to see under the microscope than plant cells. Animal cells are often slightly smaller than plant cells, and they lack the thick cell walls that make plant cells unique. The animal cell has an outer thin layer called the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Unlike the plant's rigid cell wall, the animal cell's plasma membrane is thin and flexible, so that the cell can change its shape. The plasma membrane serves both as a protective coat and a gatekeeper that selects what to let in and out of the cell. The plasma membrane blocks the path of some substances but lets others pass freely into and out of the cell. For example, the plasma membrane allows amino acids inside the cell for building proteins and carbohydrates inside for energy. The plasma membrane also regulates the amount of water inside the cell. The plasma membrane's structure allows it to perform its function by being the gatekeeper of the cell. It is made up of two layers of lipid molecules. These lipid molecules hold proteins in their place. The areas where the proteins lie mark the actual entrance and exit of the molecules into the cell. Different proteins act as different entry and exit points for specific molecules. In fact, similar membranes surround all of the cell's organelles. These membranes perform similar gatekeeper functions for other parts of the cell, including the endoplasmic reticulum, the nucleus, the Golgi apparatus, and the mitochondria. Membranes divide regions of the cell into different compartments. For example, the nucleus is wrapped in a double membrane with its pores or holes that let genetic information pass between it and the rest of the cell. I am going to stop there and highlight the important points that we have read so far that I've written behind me if you can see it. The important first bullet is that cells make up all living things, so anything that's living is made of cells. There are differences between plant and animal cells, the main difference being the cell wall and the cell membrane. So the cell wall is going to be found in plant cells, and the cell membrane is going to be found in animal cells. The next bullet says that organelles are all smaller parts of a cell, and each has a different function. So it's important to know the different organelles and what their function is to understand the function of plant and animal cells separately.